said, I thought I had Seminole Margarita back in there.
I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, November 4th, 2014 at 6:30. Roll call.
Mayor Archie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Here.
Commissioner Banther?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend Bob Russell, Family of Faith Church. Will everyone stand and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance following?
Lord, we are meeting here tonight to conduct matters of community business. Guide our hearts and our minds in a spirit of fairness, understanding, and integrity. Give your supreme wisdom upon each person here on the board and patience to those inquiring or needing assistance, allowing the decisions they reach to have a successful conclusion. We realize that we are working together for you, but we are not the master builder. This is the whole reason we ask for your direction. As we enter the holiday season, we ask for a special blessing for those who volunteer their time, their money to the less fortunate. Father, I further ask that others steps up to support these programs of the Shepherd Center and Metropolitan Ministries. Bless the men and women of our armed forces as they are stationed around the world, many of them away from the home for the very first time during these holidays. Please keep them safe and a speedy return to their homes. We ask this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now go to public comments on items that will not be discussed this evening. Seeing none, we will go to proclamation. The first one is Veterans Day. This proclamation reads, City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, whereas on Veterans Day we pay tribute to the service and sacrifice of men and women who, in defense of our freedom, have bravely worn the uniform of the United States. And whereas America's veterans answered the call when asked to protect our nation and stood tall in the face of grave danger and enable our nation to become the greatest force for freedom in human history. Members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard have answered a high calling to serve and have helped secure America at every turn. And whereas our country is forever indebted to our veterans for their quiet courage and exemplary service, we also remember and honor those who laid down their lives in freedom's defense. These brave men and women made the ultimate sacrifice for our benefit. On Veterans Day, we remember these heroes for their valor, their loyalty, and their dedication. And whereas with respect for and in recognition of the contributions our service members have made to the cause of peace and freedom around the world, now therefore I, David Archie, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Tarpon Springs, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2014 as Veterans Day. Not sure if anyone's going to get this over
Tom is
with.
unable to be here tonight. We'll get that to him.
All right, thank you. The next item that we have is another proclamation. It's 81st anniversary of Tarpon Springs Taxi Arcades, Archangel Michael Simeon Society. And this proclamation reads, City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, whereas the people of Simi have always been instrumental in building the sponge industry and contributing to the creation of businesses and the civic community in Tarpon Springs, and whereas the Simeon Society has contributed to the construction of St. Nicholas Cathedral in Tarpon Springs and the Tarpon Springs Hospital and other projects, whereas the island of Simini of the Dodecanese Islands of Greece has entered into a sister city affiliation with the City of Tarpon Springs, and whereas the City of Tarpon Springs is honored to celebrate with the Simeon Society of the Feast of the Archangel Michael of Panormus, Panamanians. And whereas the city of Tarpon Springs is privileged to celebrate the 81st anniversary celebration of Tarpon Springs, Taxi Arthurs, Archangel Michael Simeon Society. Now therefore I, David Archie, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Tarpon Springs, do hereby proclaim November 8th, 2014 as a day of celebration in the honor of the 81st anniversary of Tarpon Springs, Taxi Arthurs, Archangel Michael Simeon Society. And I thank Mr. Faculas who received this, one of them, or all of them. Send the one who can't refuse the youngest. You want to say anything?
On behalf of the Simeon Society, thank you for this proclamation. We obviously love being a part of Tarpon Springs history, and I'm third generation living here. As many others, my grandparents came over here from the island to see me, adopted the cultures of America and Tarpon Springs, and built their businesses and continue living here today. So we enjoy being a part of this community and being able to contribute, even if it's a small part, in philanthropic contributions throughout the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any public comment on any of these proclamations?
Anita Prost, 901 Bayshore Drive. I want to congratulate the Simeon Society. When the divers first came over here, the Simeons were very instrumental in the sponge industry here as divers. If you read into the history, you see they were the first ones to use, I believe, the air tubes years ago with the sponges. They've been very giving to the community of Tarpon Springs and St. Nicholas Church. But not only have they given to the Greek community, they have given to the community at large. Duchess Alferis, Steve Katsaris, Mr. Cantonis. They've put us on the map, as the Faculas have, through the years. Their father, Vasily's grandfather, served in the military, along with Mr. Tarpon through the years. They elevated the military men of Tarpon Springs through the years. They are pillars of the community, the Simeon Society. And I'm thankful that y'all have recognized them because they have played a very important role in Tarpon Springs. Thank you.
If there are no other public comments, we go to our consent agenda. Attorney fees, Thompson, Sizemore, Gonzalez, Hearing, LLP, invoice number 77505. For special events, Thanksgiving Arts and Craft Festival, Chamber of Commerce, that's November 29th and 30th. There's no place like Tarpon Springs, Chamber of Commerce, and City of Tarpon Springs on December 12th. Holiday Boat Parade, Recreation Department, December 12th. Annual Christmas Parade, Chamber of Commerce, December 13th. Light Up the Bayou, Sunset Hills Elementary School, December 24th. Epiphany Procession, St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Cathedral, January 6, 2015. 5 is award file number 150015-N-RS, single source, purchase of lift station, supervisory control and data acquisition system. 6 is award file number 150016-N-RS, single source purchase of chlorinator equipment and service. 7 is award file number 150033-N-RS, single source purchase of chemicals, odor control. 8 is award bid number 140098-B-RS, laboratory services. 9 is increased file number 140092-S-JJ, temporary planning services. 10 is authorized utilization of National Joint Powers Alliance contract number 022014-AMI sewer vacuum hydro excavation and/or street sweeper equipment with related accessories and supplies for purchase of a sewer TV inspection truck. 11 is authorized utilization of school board of Pinellas County bid number 15-060-075-RN motor vehicle parts. 12 is rescind award of bid number 140088-B-CM janitorial and floor cleaning services for the public safety facility, cultural center, and Salford House. Any items anyone would like to pull?
4A.
4A, would you,
We can approve it, I just have a comment about it.
go ahead.
Mark, if you look at the backup on page 4, I see where the proposed tents are going to align the street. And I'm pretty sure they're being held to one side of the street and then breakups on different cross streets, and I assume that's due to emergency vehicles being able to access. So I don't necessarily have a huge issue with that. I just know that for some of the businesses on Tarpon Avenue, it can be a little bit obtrusive or problematic to have, tents right in front of your storefronts. So if you can just keep in mind if there's any way to hold some spaces where appropriate in front of storefronts so people can get through the tents to actually go into the stores, that would be helpful if you can mention that maybe at the Thursday meetings when you guys talk about this.
Yes, I can do that Thursday.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else anyone would like to discuss? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on any of these items? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Next is special consent agenda, item number 13, award RFP number 150005-P-CM golf course ground maintenance. Smell.
Good evening, Paul Smith, Public Services Director. I'd like to introduce to you again our golf course manager, Howard Hunt. He'd just like to give you a few summaries of this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, of course, this is a very large contract for us, obviously, and it's a very long time for 5 years. But just wanted to let y'all know and try to assure you that we've done our due diligence in making sure that what's contained within the contract is going to help us improve the golf course and maintain it to our standards. Just some highlights I wanted to go over with you were, we made some changes within the contract that should provide us a better working relationship with the contractor, which is Davy Tree Company, and execution of the contract. The added values that Davy brought into the contract are pretty big and significant. They should enable us to improve the golf course. One of the big ones is drainage. I don't know if you've read it, a lot of it. And of course, then the price of the contract is pretty substantial too. I think it's coming in under the budget for this year, somewhere around $30,000. So you extend that over to 5 years, I think we're going to be getting a pretty good value. So that's really all I wanted to add to it. So thank you for your time, and looking forward to getting the golf course where it wants to be, so it'll be a profitable enterprise for the city. That's our goal. All right.
Any questions for Howard?
Yeah. Any questions? Okay.
If there are no questions, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Item number 14, authorized utilization of City of St. Petersburg RFP 7656 Strategic Partnership Agreement for water and wastewater supplies.
For the next items, 14 through 17, they are on special consent simply because of their cost. They're items that are all budgeted or they've gone through the normal process. So on those items, if there's any questions from the backup, but again, the reason they're on special consent is because of the price of of each of the items.
Anyone have any questions on item number 14? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. Item number 15, award bid number 150021-B-RS, 2,500 kilowatts, 3525K VA Tier 4F diesel generator with enclosure. Any questions anyone have on this for the city manager or Mr. Jackus? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther.
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. Item number 16, authorized purchase of cab and chassis and other fleet equipment through Florida Sheriff's Association contract number 14-12-0904. Any questions?
I have a question, Mayor.
Commissioner Tarpani?
Mr. LaCourse, on these, the list of equipment that we're buying through this contract, is this an initiative to replace existing equipment or just add to the fleet?
I believe most of them are replacements.
So we're
For
gonna-
the ones that are the budgeted replacements on equipment that is
So the old equipment will be sold at an auction?
at auction, yes.
Can we have a report as to the results of that auction?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
Any public comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. Item number 17 is authorized purchase of various vehicles through the Florida Sheriff Association contract number 14-22-0904. Any questions? The chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther.
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. The next item is item number 18, approved settlement recommendation, administrative fine lien, 514 East Morgan Street, code enforcement case number 01-0000971.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a request to settle an administrative fine on the property located at 514 East Morgan Street. That fine emanates from a date of violation, August 23rd, 2001. The violation was, the yard was overgrown with high grass, which we've seen a lot of distressed property, scattered trash and debris, and a couple of inoperative vehicles located in the front yard. The original amount of the fine was $55,050. The present owner, Fox Meadow Acquisition LLC, when they took possession of the property, the violations were immediately corrected, and they've stayed in compliance since that time. And so for that reason, and for, I think, another compelling reason is because the value of the property is actually less than the amount of the fine. And on the theory that it's better to attempt to develop and move distressed properties with good owners, I'm making a recommendation that the board offer to settle the case for the amount offered, which is $500 plus the administrative cost of $825, total settlement of $1,325 to remain open for 60 days. If that offer is not accepted, then the fine will revert to its original amount. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? If no questions, then Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve for settlement offer of $1,325.
Second.
And as I go to public comment, I just say that, for this one, I don't mind going along with it. When people go in and they speculate, and then when they get caught up in there, and then they come and they ask us for relief, I'm not as generous as far as because their speculation went wrong. Now it's only 500. I just say we take that in consideration when we're looking at some of our residents who might, through no fault of their own, get caught in that same predicament. $500 relief for this is very generous to someone that was speculating and then things didn't go right for them. But with that, public comments on this item? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Ordinance and resolution, item number 19, ordinance 2014-13, repealing section 27 of the city charter, second reading.
Ordinance 2014-13, an ordinance of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, repealing Section 27, tax increases of the Tarpon Springs City Charter, stating the purpose and intent, setting forth legislative findings, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Second reading of ordinance 2014-13 by title only. It's published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on October 10, 2014. We discussed this a couple of times. I'm happy to answer any questions you have from first reading to second, and I think the backup has remained the same.
Commissioner Tarpani?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just say that it was pretty evident and clear that there were multiple members of the board who had some heartburn with removing this from our city charter, mainly because it was approved by the people through referendum and it was the people's will. So I would ask the board if, at some point at our next meeting, if we could ask the city clerk to draw a resolution to, for lack of a better term, memorialize the intent of the referendum, and almost to act as a bookmark in place and time to say, hey, look, this was the intent. We realize that we can't enforce this, and that's why I'm not asking for an ordinance to be drawn, but more so as a resolution. So I would ask for your consideration on that.
For clarification, I'm sorry, Mayor, if I may speak.
No, go ahead.
For clarification, a resolution stating that this board agrees with the language that was in the charter that we are now forced to remove?
I don't even feel like we need to say that this board agrees, but a resolution stating that at a point in time in 1995, there was a referendum that was passed with the will of the people as a benchmark that any board of the commission could not increase the millage rate by half a mil, which was what the charter had in place, correct? So just as a resolution to put that somewhere in our books, that we recognize it was the will of the people. Unfortunately, we're having to rescind that because it's not legal to have that in our charter, and we want to keep updated records in charter. But just to have something in place that says we recognize that and we can appreciate it.
Okay.
Something also like an encouragement of future commissions to adhere to the will, even though they obviously can, but adhere to the spirit of that thing, something of that sort.
Absolutely.
Is that,
I don't think that's a problem.
It's the least we can do, I think.
I don't think that's a problem.
well, I don't mind as long as we look at it and see. My biggest thing is I just don't want to mislead any future commissioners that they're under any obligations to do anything but what they believe is in the best interest of the people.
Sure.
My thoughts is time changes. Just like I had a conversation with a gentleman just recently. Nobody wants to pay, but everybody wants services. So as long as that equates to what people want, they're not as concerned about the half meal as they is about wasting their money. So as long as we word it properly, that gives future commissions just some insight as to what was happening, I have no problem with it. So,
Thank you.
with that, Chair will entertain a motion as it relates to this item number 19.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comments on this item?
words, but when I read all the backup, I said I have to go to the meeting. First of all, Mayor, I want to commend you on the enunciation of those Greek names. You would have been the star of Greek school. You would have been the star. I believe I was on the board in '95 when we did this, and there was a reason for it. The citizens were adamant about taxes back then. It was allowed. That's what I won my election on, the campaign on taxes. And at that time, it was okay, but times have changed. And I want to thank Commissioner Tarpon for bringing that up to clear the air, because it's being discussed out in the public quite a bit. And it will clear the air for all of you on the board. If you do that, it'll make the citizens understand and feel better. And it's a final closing on that chapter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes. Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. The next item is ordinance 2014-16, chronic nuisance, first reading.
Ordinance 2014-16, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs creating Division 4 and Article 3 of Chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances to be entitled Chronic Nuisance Property Code, relating to the provision of chronic nuisance services by the city, authorizing the imposition and collection of chronic nuisance service assessments against real property, establishing a procedure for imposing chronic nuisance service assessments, providing that the lien for a chronic nuisance service assessment collected pursuant to Sections 197.3632 and 197.3635 Florida statutes shall be perfected and shall attach to the property upon adoption of the assessment rule, providing that a perfected lien shall be equal in rank and dignity with the lien of all state, county, district, or municipal taxes and assessments, and superior in dignity to all other prior liens, mortgages, titles, and claims, providing a codification clause, providing a conflicts and severability clause, and providing for an effective date of this ordinance. That's the first reading of ordinance 2014-16 by title only. The second reading will be held on November 18, 2014, and the ordinance will be published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only on November 7, 2014.
Thank you. You on the list, Chief? Or?
Just the county.
I know we kind of went over it the last
We
time.
brought forward this ordinance for discussion last commission meeting. We lay our case as to why we felt this was necessary, give us, more tools to go after some of these properties. We have properties in the city that for years have been a drain on resources and severely affect the quality of life in the areas that they're in. We're satisfied with the ordinance. We worked with the city attorney's office on the ordinance, and I believe that we had consensus of this board to move forward, so we're bringing it back to you for a first read. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the Chief? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
One of the things is that I just would ask is that I'm not sure what happened with the pictures that we had, but that, those pictures be available to the public so they know that this is definitely what we consider chronic nuisance in terms of trying to deal with some issues that we have no other way of doing, not that this is just the ordinary type of code enforcement, but this is the extraordinary things that happen,
For our worst offenders.
All right. With that, any public comments on this item?
I wasn't here when you discussed the motion, Anita Prost 901 Bay Shore. Does this ordinance take care of the motels and what's going on in them, Chief? What I'm asking is, you're going to change the area of a historic district place for B&B, bread and breakfast. People are coming in. You go up there on Friday night from the motel, there's individuals out there asking for money. Do you want drugs? You go down the bayou on weekends, people in the park, they're down there. What will this cover in closing businesses that refuse to cooperate with the ordinance? Will you be, if say either motel doesn't abide and you have a lot of calls there and there's a lot of problems, can you close these businesses with this ordinance?
Mr. Attorney, could you just comment real quick on how it works? I know Ms. Prost wasn't here at the last meeting when we went over all
Yeah.
this, so
Yeah, this particular ordinance does not give the city the ability to close a business for multiple violations of code. This particular ordinance scheme is designed towards, chronic offenders of different types of ordinances, and it provides the city with the ability to recover the cost of abating those nuisances. Now, there are other statutes on the books that would permit, and those are typically criminal statutes, that would permit the city to move forward or the police department to move forward in closing a business, but this ordinance does not address those.
Okay, does this ordinance cover, and I don't know how you would do this, the element of individuals in these motels? There are some criminals in there. There are people in there that have done some very bad things, and they're mingling in with the neighborhoods, people's lives in their homes, and people on the streets.
Drug dealing, prostitution, and enumerates a whole list of state law violations.
Gun dealers,
Absolutely.
kids in school that are hardened criminals with arsenals. It's very dangerous. So does this ordinance take care of that?
It covers that. So if we have a property where there's a lot of crime occurring, and those crimes are enumerated in the ordinance, it would be a violation of the ordinance after certain steps are taken. But we believe this ordinance gives us another avenue to go after some of these chronic nuisance properties, so.
Okay,
We
if
believe it will be effective.
within a year to 2 years the most, people can't even enjoy their yards there.
Yeah, there's a time element to the ordinance where if the police department, code enforcement has to respond to a property to address particular violations, and many of them are, within the ordinances and state statutes, then it begins to kick in and they have to go back. Needs to be a certain amount of violations within a certain amount of time. And it differs between residential properties and commercial
All
properties.
right, because it's protection for the neighborhood and the older people that live in their homes, because they have, they go to their doors, and it's just not a pretty situation for the neighborhood. But I love going by there at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning, seeing all the police cars there. I know that they've had a busy night again. But you have to really see what goes on there on weekends and in the evenings to realize what's happening. And it's right downtown, and it affects everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Peter Delax, 514 Ashland Avenue. This was brought up as the primary focus of this legislation was to basically go after properties that were nuisances, as the chief just reiterated. However, again, I have concerns, and nothing against chief, and we all need law enforcement, but I'm concerned about overreach in regards to who's deciding who to call a chronic nuisance. And again, I point you out to page 6 of 16, that if a pattern of nuisance activity exists upon real property, the city may declare the property to be a chronic nuisance. I brought this up when we heard this 2 weeks ago, and this is the same exact reprint of what's in the book. I got this from the last meeting. Who is the city going to originally say someone is a chronic nuisance? The implication here is it's the police department. I don't wish to infer that or imply that, but that inference is there because just above that, it says real property shall be deemed to exhibit a pattern of nuisance activity if, 1, the Tarpon's Police Department, 2, Tarpon Springs Police Department, 3, Tarpon Springs Police Department, 4, failure to correct code violations by the time ordered by the Code Enforcement Board. My only concern is there's quite a bit of overreach in regards to how much power the city is giving itself. There are ways you can do these things that you're wanting to do now. Yes, it is harder and it's more costly, but that's part of the checks and balances of our society. There's section, page 9 of 16. If they get a notice, they can request a hearing before the Code Enforcement Board. But should the Code Enforcement Board originally be the ones deciding if they are a chronic nuisance? Then goes on to establishment and costs, method of notice, but I want to point out there's a little small section here, doesn't, kind of interesting. Page 12 of 16, section 867, registration of distressed vacant properties. Registration by owner and registration by foreclosing mortgagor, and then it goes to next page, 869, unpaid chronic nuisance service costs, where you're saying this is an assessment and you're putting your costs for all this above everybody else in the whole world who has any claim on this property. Now, yep, there may be legal verification in state statutes that justify that, but I don't know, some of this just does not flush out well. 15 of 16, section 873, lien of chronic nuisance service assessments. Upon the adoption of the final assessment roll, all chronic nuisance service assessments shall constitute a perfected lien against the assessed real property superior to all other private rights, interests, liens, encumbrances, titles, and claims upon the property, and equal in rank and dignity with a lien for ad valorem taxes. Boy, that's a pretty powerful statement that y'all are saying you can do. I just say, not that sometimes things are brought forth with a good intent, but you need to look at the process and what rights you may be giving away, what other options you have. I know on the property that one of the big thing is Lime Street. There was, went to court to get an injunction and a whole bunch of legal stuff, So there are things there to be way to handle some of that stuff.
Thank you. Any other public comments? We have a motion? We have a motion? I just say this, and I respect the comments that were just been made. This is put in place for chronic nuisance. Individuals that people would be coming to the city continuously complaining, and there's nothing that we could do. Sometimes you have to put pressure on people to do what's right. If they would do what's right, they never would have to even incur this. So this is something I just believe that's necessary as we move forward. Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Next item is item 21, Bayshore Heights. We're doing the ordinance for the rezoning. You're gonna explain what we're doing and
Yeah, item 21 here, the Bayshore Heights issue, because we have some items that are done by ordinance and need 2 readings, and we have a resolution that would typically need 1. And because the first 3 on that list are 21A, B, and C are quasi-judicial, whereas the last one, D, the development agreement itself, is a legislative process, going to, as a function of procedure, do the ordinances together tonight. Karen, Mr. Healy, if that's what y'all want to do the quasi-judicial proceedings together tonight on those. I'm going to read the resolutions on the site plan and the development agreement, and staff is going to ask you, I'll ask you on behalf of planning staff and myself to defer the vote on those resolutions until the November 18th meeting. One of the reasons for that is that the development agreement, y'all haven't had before you and had a chance to discuss it since it was approved for negotiation back in July. So staff felt it was a good idea to give you additional time with it. It had been a planning and zoning already, so we needed to advertise it for tonight. But again, so I am going to ask you to defer at the appropriate time the resolutions 21C and 21D, and to have a quasi-judicial hearing on 21A and 21B, the zoning map amendment and the vacation of the right-of-way. That's all the same with everybody.
don't see any objections.
Sure. All right, let me read the ordinances first on 21A and B, and then I'll read quasi-judicial procedures, and we can proceed from there. Ordinance 2014-14, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida for 21.0 acres of vacant property lying in Section 11, Township 27 South, Range 15 East, consisting of 25 parcels generally located in Bayshore Heights, beginning at Loquat Drive and proceeding north to Bayshore Drive, and more particularly described in Exhibit A here too, from R100 Single Family Residential District to R100A Single Family Residential District, providing for findings and providing for an effective date. That's the first reading of Ordinance 2014-14 by title only. Second reading will be held on November 18, 2014, and the ordinance is published in the Tampa Bay Times on October 3 and October 10, 2014. Ordinance 2014-15, an ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, vacating and abandoning right-of-way for portions of Ketchuput Way and DeSoto Way between Loquat Drive and Bayshore Drive, providing for conditions, providing for findings, providing for future easements, providing for recordation in the public records of Pinellas County, and providing an effective date. That's the first reading of Ordinance 2014-15 by title only. Second reading will be held on November 18, 2014, and published in the Tampa Bay Times by title only with a map on October 31, 2014. As I said, both of those ordinances are quasi-judicial in nature. At such a proceeding, the Commission acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At such a hearing, it is not the Commission's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the Commission is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application. The Commission may only consider evidence that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant. If that evidence demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code, then the Commission is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. On the other hand, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code, then the Commission is required to find against the applicant. There is an established procedure which will be followed at this quasi-judicial hearing. All witnesses must give their testimony under oath. All persons testifying at this hearing must give their name and address for the record. All testimony must address matters that are relevant and material to the issues under consideration. The city staff will present its testimony and evidence first. The applicant will then have an opportunity to cross-examine city staff. The applicant will then present its testimony to witnesses. City staff will have an opportunity to cross-examine the applicant's witnesses. Members of the public opposing the application will then be given an opportunity to present testimony. After all members of the public speaking in opposition to the application have concluded, members of the public in support of the application will have an opportunity to present testimony. Each member of the public is limited to 4 minutes. The applicant will then have an opportunity to make a closing argument or summary, after which city staff will be given an opportunity to make a closing argument or summary. Following this, the Commission will consider the matter. Commissioners may ask questions of witnesses at this point in the proceedings. A motion will be made and a vote will be taken. At this time, I would ask the Commission to disclose any ex parte communications on these two ordinances, these two issues, with the applicant. Seeing none, I'd ask for anyone who intends to testify tonight to please stand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? At that, I would turn it over to Mr. Healy or Ms. Lemons for the staff presentation on the ordinances.
Thank you, Karen Lemons, Economic Development Manager. Just as an introduction, thank you to the City Attorney for explaining how we wanted to proceed tonight. The first two ordinances, we're looking for a vote tonight. The second two, you haven't seen the development agreement for some time, as the site plan as well, and so we wanted to give you an opportunity to have a look at it, discuss it. If you have any changes or any amendments, to be able to bring it back to you then and have all four of these, as they're all interrelated, come back to you for final vote on the 18th of, at the next meeting. So that's why we thought we wanted to give you some opportunity. Then I'm going to ask Dave Healy, who's FAICP certified, to make the presentation on behalf of the staff.
Thank you, Karen. Mary Archie, members of the commission. Dave Healy with Calvin Giordano and Associates here tonight on behalf of the City of Tarpon Springs, assisting your planning and zoning department. Mayor and Commissioners, we can proceed in whatever fashion you would like. Because these are four interrelated applications and because the two resolutions help explain the first two ordinances on rezoning and vacation. I can either present them in their entirety and then let you come back and address each one separately, or we can approach them one by one and conduct the quasi-judicial hearing on each one as we go, whatever is your preference and the city attorney suggests.
If it's okay with the commission, a single presentation as these applications are related is just fine, so long as everyone who wants to has the opportunity to present evidence and question witnesses. So if that's your preference and the
Okay,
commission has no
Let's try and
objection.
do that, because I do think the latter applications on the site plan and the vacation will help explain what the zoning is all about, and that way we can maybe save some time and redundancy.
Sure. And Mr. Hill, I just ask that when we get to the point where we need to explain that, or you need to explain that, make sure we go through the criteria applicable to the ones we'll be voting on tonight, meaning the amendment to the zoning map and the vacation of the right-of-way. I'm sure you get to those.
Well, the first is a request for rezoning the subject property from R100 to R100A. It is for the Bel Air Heights project, approximately 21 acres. It is part of a pre-existing subdivision that dates back to 1958. There are 86 parcels involved in the acquisition.
Pardon me for interrupting. Could you pull the microphone closer?
Sure. Like so? Is that better? Better? Okay, thank you. There are 86 lots that are being acquired as part of the project from an existing subdivision plat that was platted originally in 1958. 60 of those proposed lots are proposed to be developed under the R100A zoning designation. You have the background information. I won't recite all of that. I will touch on the review criteria that are outlined in some detail in your staff report. There are essentially 4 main criteria with respect to the city's requirements for rezoning. The first is that it be consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And we've enumerated some of those specific policies and objectives that we think speak to that consistency. They have to do with the protection of wetlands, the provision of stormwater drainage, and in particular, Goal 2 and Policy 242 that are enumerated on page 3 of the staff report that speak to ensuring that development and redevelopment are consistent with the public facility needs of current and future residents and discourage the proliferation of urban sprawl. It speaks specifically to redevelopment in a contiguous pattern that recognizes existing development that is both cost-effective and recognizes the natural environmental features on the site. The second criteria asks that we speak to the available uses and are they changed? Well, the permitted uses, both permitted and conditional uses in the R100 and the R100A are one and the same. It does not change what's allowed in terms of the permitted uses. It says the amendment shall provide for efficient and orderly development, considering the impact upon growth patterns and cost to the city. One of the things that is occurring here is the completion of a street system and the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, the stormwater management that will in fact improve the infrastructure system for an area that was not completed under that original subdivision plat. The Technical Review Committee did review this application among the others that support it and found it compliant with the requirements of the code. There were 2 public meetings held that are noted here. Tuesday, May 27th, held by the applicant, and then a second meeting on June 23rd, sponsored by the city, that was meant to inform joining residents, interested neighbors on exactly what the project involved, and changes were made as a result of those public meetings. The staff recommendation initially to the Planning and Zoning Board and now to the City Commission is that the amendment to the zoning map be made, subject to the approval of the other corresponding parts of the application. It's important to understand that these are kind of inextricably connected, and obviously if we recommend rezoning the property, it is contingent on what you ultimately decide with the site plan and the development agreement that locks that specific plan in place. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval by a vote of 5 to 1. There were comments from the public that are noted here in the staff report. In particular, I would note the comments of Mr. Andropoulos, who is an adjoining property owner and was recognized as an intervener in that proceeding, who had specific concerns and objections with regard to the drainage on the west side of West Bay Shore extended. So we want to acknowledge those comments. With that, Mayor, I'll stop on the rezoning and move to the vacation request, if that is timely, or I'll be glad to answer any questions on the rezoning from the commission first.
Continue.
Go ahead, okay. The vacation request is obviously part and parcel of the overall application. Again, what is being proposed here is the extension of West Bay Shore. Portions of DeSoto and Kajaput would be constructed, but portions of those two streets would be vacated, as shown on the attached legal description and map. There are specific review criteria with regard to the vacation request. Again, those are enumerated on page 2 of the staff report. There are 4, and I'll just touch on each of them quickly. The portion of the unimproved right-of-way to be vacated do not contain municipal or electric utilities that need to be preserved. In fact, municipal utilities will be extended as part of the overall project. The second one is that the property does not provide the sole means of access to an adjoining property, and it does not. In fact, the construction of these streets will provide access to some of these existing platted lots that are proposed to be developed. The property is not needed to implement the future circulation plans of the transportation element. Well, again, part of the street system is being constructed here. The portions of the streets that are proposed to be vacated, the subject of this specific application, are not required in order to provide access to the property that is being developed. And it will, in fact, improve the overall circulation in the neighborhood with the extension, in particular, of West Bay Shore. The property does not provide the adjoining neighborhood with a viable, usable access or vista to the city's shoreline, a very important criteria when you're considering vacation, and these vacations do not with respect to providing access to the shoreline. So for all of those reasons, the vacation request is recommended to you. Again, the Planning and Zoning Board did support that recommendation. I believe the vote there was, I believe, unanimous with respect to the Planning and Zoning Board recommendations. So those are the two ordinances that are in front of you tonight for first reading. And in further explanation of those, in support of those, the two resolutions that staff felt important to at least bring to you for discussion, so that hopefully the particulars of the project would be completely understood, are first of all the site plan, and that's application number 1462. It is for approval of a site plan. I believe you have those specific plans in front of you. I won't try and describe it in great detail, but it does propose to develop some 60 lots to extend the street systems that are proposed and shown there, specifically north of Loquat Drive on West Bay Shore, portions of DeSoto Way and Kajaput Way. It does provide specifically for connections and additions to the potable water and sanitary sewer systems. Some of those improvements are described there. The lot sizes will meet, obviously, all the requirements of the proposed R100A zoning district. And many of those details in the site plan, while it's all well and good to look at the picture and the map, are detailed, enumerated, and are being memorialized in the development agreement so that there's no misunderstanding about specifically what is proposed and how it would be done. The standards for site plan review procedures and criteria were reviewed, again, with respect to the comprehensive plan, your zoning code, the other provisions of your code with respect to concurrency, in particular, the concurrency requirements for your infrastructure system, and those have been evaluated and complied with. The staff recommendation on the site plan on page 4 of that section of the report was to approve the site plan, subject to several specific listed conditions. And I'll touch on those because they're all identified in one manner or another in the resolution itself. Obviously, again, corresponding approval of the development agreement. These things are tied at the hip. Approval of the vacation request, which we've just talked about for DeSoto Way and Kajiput. Compliance with all other minimum requirements of the Land Development Code, and all requisite outside agency approvals. We know that SwiftMud approval is required, approval from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission with respect to relocation of the gopher tortoises that have been identified on the site will be required. And obviously, again, consistent with your code, approval of the construction plans within the required provided time. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of the site plan by a vote of 6-0, subject to those same conditions, and the additional condition that all of the provisions of the tree removal and replacement ordinance be complied with. So we think we've covered all of the contingencies with respect to the requirements of the code. The board did discuss, as we pointed out on page 4, at some considerable length, the provisions for stormwater management, in particular with respect to Mr. Andropoulos's property, and others who expressed interest and is noted in the public comments, in particular Mr. Paul Levine. So those are noted for your information and consideration. Those same conditions are then embodied in Resolution 2014-32 that is, again, just for your information and consideration tonight. The last of the 4 items then is the development agreement, and this is the guts of it, if you will. This is really where the rubber meets the road, where the city attorney has laid out all of the particulars in terms of exactly what the expectations of the applicant are, what the commitments of the city are, and it has been prepared, obviously consistent with the provisions of state law, Chapter 163, and the city's comprehensive zoning and land development code. It is, as the commission recognizes, authorized pursuant to your direction at an earlier meeting. And the principal...
Pardon me again for interrupting.
Certainly.
If you could either raise the microphone or speak a little bit louder, I'm having a hard time hearing what you're saying.
I don't know, Mark.
Pick it out of there.
Turn
Is that better?
mic up.
I'm sorry. Hear me now, okay? Okay.
That's better.
I
Thank you.
apologize. I tend to tail off at the end of a sentence, too. The principal terms of the development agreement are spelled out on page 2, under Roman numeral 4. I've just tried to highlight the principal points, and I can review them, but again, they are laid out in detail in the development agreement by the city attorney. The staff recommendation was to approve the development agreement, and the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board by a vote of 6-0 was to recommend approval of the development agreement. They did make 2 changes to the development agreement that I believe have been made and incorporated in the draft that's in front of you. It specifically deleted the last 2 sentences of section 16E1 that spoke to the potential for Lucille Drive being constructed, and that has been eliminated. The connection from Loquat to Bayshore is to be on West Bayshore Drive only. And the recommendation that the curbs and swales along West Bayshore Drive be addressed by the Board of Commissioners. This was in response to Mr. Andropoulos's concerns, and they simply asked that that be further considered and evaluated by the board as part of your consideration tonight. There was an additional motion by the planning board in really concert and response to all 4 applications, and that's noted at the bottom of page 3 with respect to addition and subsequent to the recommendations of the rezoning site plan and development agreement. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended by a vote of, I believe it was 6-0. If I can turn that page. Thank you. That the commission consider the feasibility and desirability of extending Eunice Drive from Loquat to Bayshore Drive in concert with the development of the Bayshore Heights project. Again, this was a supplemental recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board for the commission to consider. The city manager has attached additional information that staff has provided with respect to what that might involve, and we can address those questions if the commission would like. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll stand aside to answer any questions the commission has of me and follow the remaining steps in the quasi-judicial hearing process.
At this time, we would ordinarily turn to the applicant presentation, although the commission is welcome to ask questions if they want to at this juncture of staff.
Well, just one that I would ask as we continue to move on is, what was the reasoning behind staff agreeing with the R100A as what should be basically the zoning classification for that area?
Well, several-fold, Mayor. One, it does comport with the current comprehensive plan. The current comprehensive plan, future land use plan category, is residential low. It allows a maximum of 5 units an acre. The change in zoning doesn't change that maximum. That would still be the maximum permitted. But more specifically, the proposed project will use those existing platted lots without changing the lot lines, without replatting anything. It will take what were 86 lots and develop 60 of them. So only about 70% of the area is being developed. So the overall density, there's approximately 20 acres with 60 lots, ends up being about 3 units per acre. So it's considerably below what even the R100 would allow, which is 4 units an acre. So the density fully complies with the comprehensive plan, number one. Doesn't really change the effective density of what would have been permitted under R100 if it were to be fully developed. And in truth, it really addresses the objective of today of clustering the development portion of the site that is to be developed and leaving open and recognizing the wetland area that is there to be preserved, providing for stormwater management on a significant part of the property. So it really allowed for some portion of those existing lots to be developed as they were originally designed, but by providing for the infrastructure that's needed in terms of stormwater management in particular, and recognizing the wetland or environmental conditions that are there, allows really a net or effective density without any increase in density, if you will, well within the parameters of the plan and effectively not any different than the R100. So the idea that we're creating smaller lots is somewhat misleading in the sense of looking at the overall pattern of development there and the net effect of the density that results from it. And for those reasons, we felt it an appropriate amendment.
All right. Any, Commissioner Tarpon?
Thank you. Just a little clarification on how we're going to proceed tonight. I know we discussed A through D with Mr. Healy, but if I have some comments or even a motion that I would like to make during the site plan or development agreement portion as an amendment to the site plan, is that something that I would be able to do during that discussion or that I would need to do now?
If it concerns the site plan or the development agreement, I would request that it wait until we get to those resolutions. I'm going to be reading those later, and we can, based on everything you've heard from Mr. Healy, wait till that time to make that motion.
Thank you.
Well, just as a point of clarification, are we going to take that resolution, those and defer that?
That's what staff and I are asking you to do.
Well, then, I'm just trying to see how would it be appropriate then to have a motion as it relates to an item that we will be deferring.
Yeah, I mean, you can
discuss what that
correct.
he would like to talk about, or
Yeah.
motion that he would like to make at the appropriate time.
Exactly. That's precisely what I'm saying. You can discuss, if you want some, you'd like to see some motion or some different things, and certainly those be entertained at that time. And then I'd ask that the motion and the vote be to defer it until the next meeting.
Okay.
Or we could gather potentially a consensus for an item to be added to the development agreement?
Yeah, you could do that, except that, again, I would like the end motion, particularly as to the development agreement, to be to defer it. And if you defer it with conditions, that's fine as well.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I told Commissioner Tarapani that if the motion would be to defer it with conditions, either is fine, but the formal action would be to defer it. It's okay.
So how do you want to proceed now?
Mr. Danielson, you want a presentation? Sure.
Good evening, Mayor Archie, Commissioners. Bruce Danielson, 36 Winston Drive, Bel Air, Florida. Mr. Healy did a great job explaining where we're at with this. All I want to do is just remind everybody all the work that's gone in to getting to where we are, and it's been a great project with a lot of citizen involvement, a lot of staff involvement, a lot of commissioner involvement, a lot of P&Z involvement. And we tried to take all this into consideration and keep enhancing and improving what we're doing here. So, I mean, we did have the citizen meetings, and Ms. Protos had some great suggestions on West Bay Shore. We knew there were going to be some issues with it. Luckily, we were able to work them all out, including even a drainage issue. Our engineer worked with the city's engineer, and we're able to curb and gutter all of West Bay Shore. So what was a concern at P&Z is eliminated at this point. The improvements we're making in the area, helping the city make in the area, we're all in favor of. The road vacations, the big part of driving a lot of that was to preserve the wetlands and limit the access onto Bay Shore, which was one of the comments from some of the citizen meetings. We have realized when we went to TRC, the fire department had a couple of requests in regards to our hammerheads and to be able to turn the fire truck around. So we have made some tweaks to that. We do realize now that we are what we asked for as far as the vacations, about 2/10 of an acre too low, and we need to go back before TRC to get that tweaked because it's not perfect the way we need it. We are asking to vacate what we have there, and then we'll just need a little bit additional at the next round, but just want to be upfront with everybody on that. But that's all come about in an effort to preserve wetlands, improve the fire truck turnaround, and minimize or maximize the green space and minimize the roadways. So it is a work in progress. It keeps getting better and better, and it is a complicated deal because we do have to put all four pieces together all at the same time. So the staff, in our opinion, has done an excellent job of trying to tie all that together and make it all work, even though it's a continually evolving situation. But again, thank you. And if you do have any questions as we go on, our engineers here, and along with, I see the city's engineers here for any of the drainage or any of the technical questions.
Are there any members of the public who wish to speak opposing the applications to amend the zoning map or vacate the right-of-way? Ordinances 2014-14 or 2014-15?
Anita Prost, 901 Bay Shore Drive. I'm not opposing. I have a question to ask, and I think it has to go to the city attorney. At the Planning and Zoning Board, which I'm a member of, and the vote came, the next morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, I get up every morning to eat a sugarless popsicle, I'll start thinking, something isn't right on some of this stuff. When they talked about vacating right-of-ways, I started going through my files. The section of the code of vacation of streets, plats, or other properties is the section 216.00, which states the vacations of these properties. Well, that wasn't in our packet. And I need to know how legal that is if we didn't have it to study and vote on that vacation with the code.
If you didn't have what in your packet, I'm sorry? The ordinance itself?
Section Article Code 216.00. An application to vacate any streets, right-of-ways, parts, or other property shall be filled out with the P&Z department on forms presented by the Director of Planning and Zoning, and shall include the required fee established for this code. Did this happen? Did this happen, Mr. City Manager?
I think staff is probably
This has
more.
been in the code.
Yeah,
I just want to know, because I've had a lot of discussions with the city manager on this. And we didn't discuss it that night, and we didn't have it. Any answers?
Good, Dave.
Well,
Mr. Healy, we didn't have it that night.
You're correct, you didn't, and I'll explain why.
Okay. But was it legal for us not to have it and vote on it if it's a code?
Yeah, it was. The ordinance 216 requires that any fee be paid prior to the vacation, so that would be done prior to the second reading. It would need to be done prior to the second
It should have
reading.
been at planning and zoning. That's where it's supposed to go, sir.
It went to planning and zoning.
No, it didn't. Not in my packet.
Okay.
Mr. Healy, go ahead.
Yeah, the requirement is that it be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Department, the staff, which did review it, went to Technical Review Committee, along with all the other parts of the application. The vacation is the one component that does not go to Planning and Zoning. It is an ordinance. It comes directly to the commission. There's no requirement or provision for it to go to the Planning and Zoning Board. It does meet all the statutory requirements, which I read, the 4 particular items that the commission has to consider. So those have been met. We did certainly mention at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that the applications for rezoning, a site plan, and development agreement, which were in their packet and considered, were also contingent upon the vacation request, which was to be considered separately by the commission. So it has followed the correct process and is properly before the commission.
Well, I'm questioning this because I have my packet with me, and I don't take things out to lie about stuff. And I didn't have it, and I started thinking about it. I said, are we legal, any legal problems if this didn't happen? And when did this stop going to the P&Z board? Now, I've been off the board for quite a while, the commission board, and I'm new on the planning and zoning, but I know that it used to go to the planning and zoning. It was discussed and approved by them. When did this stop?
And Ms. Protas, I misunderstood your question. I was perceiving your question as one of the required fee, but Mr. Healy is correct. There is no requirement procedurally that this application come before the Planning
When
and
did
Zoning
it stop,
Board.
Mr. City Manager, that this quit going to the P&Z
well,
board?
Mayor, I
No,
don't know, but
it's a technical question.
And what I like to do is that I respect your right to ask that question.
Well, I expect an answer.
You found an answer to the initial question. I would ask that if there's some additional follow-up that you'd like to know of when it stopped.
I'd like
and
to know
Russ,
when
that
it stopped and
We'd
was it
like to get
changed?
with you and tell you exactly if it stopped or if it was still the same.
It's not gonna make any difference, but I'd
Nobody's
like to
saying that
know.
your memory is wrong,
No, it's not.
and even
In
if
my notes, it's
even if
not
it
wrong,
is
sir, and I
correct,
can prove it to
even
you.
if it is correct, Ms. Protas, is that
I
what
will.
we'll do is that at a time, the city manager can look as well as the attorney and get back with you on whether that changed or not.
I would like to know
But
if
what
it's
we're
an
talking about
attorney
right
opinion.
now, what you're saying is not germane to
Well,
what
what
we're
I'm
doing.
getting at is this, sir.
I
If you gave
understand what
away,
you're
if
getting
you
with.
gave away right away, which we should be paid for, then I'm very thankful, from what I'm reading here, that you're putting in Eunice Drive. Then we should go into a partnership on part of this with the developer for those right-of-ways where it doesn't all fall on the city. And I'm right on that, too. It used to be that way. If it was changed, and you were on the board after I stepped down from the board, and then you were probably part of the change, and I'd like to know when that changed.
And I heard your request.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want to thank the board for considering to put Eunice in, because the previous city manager with the board, and you were on the board at that time, because I went through 3 nights of going through everything and listening to tapes. They spoke constantly of the multimodal pedestrian plan of your developments. And that is a plan that gives access, and Mr. Healy can speak on that a little bit more, and that has not been changed, where it gives people walking, riding, driving, accessibility to get in and out of areas. And you as a board, and you're enforcing that tonight with the opening of Eunice, are responsible for the welfare and safety of the residents in that area. and I thank you, and we had to have heavy discussion to get it open. But I still feel very strongly, because of vacating the right-of-ways, which is taxpayers' property, that we should work with the developers in some way, financially, I don't care what the amount is, to help us open Eunice. It's the only right thing to do for the taxpayers of this community. But y'all can do what you want, but it's big discussion. I'll let you know that right now, Mr. Mayor. Big discussion out there. Because it's been done in the past, and we don't know when it changed. We have no idea. So if you can tell me when it was changed, or if it was changed by ordinance, I'd like to know, and I stand corrected on that, because I don't know. And the other issue is the curbing. We wanted it all the way up to where it connects to Bayshore Drive, to keep it going in a consistent, neat form. And there is some question about the swell from Mr. Andropoulos, and we've heavily discussed that in the neighborhood. We don't own the property. The developers have been very generous to us in questions, cooperating with us, working with us. I personally don't have anything against the developers. They have been upfront with me on everything in that area. But when I saw this, I said, something's wrong. And I woke up and remembered it. I don't ever remember it being changed. And if you can prove to me in black and white and by ordinance in some way that that was changed, I'd like to see it. And again, thank you for putting Eunice Drive in here, because it's very important to the area. What an exciting night tonight. We're getting Eunice Drive. We're going to wake up to a new governor in the
Well,
morning. Very excited. And I'm getting down.
That bill that
I
you
know
heard,
it went on.
that
and
was
you-
one to say
you
that we
put it on there,
appreciate.
But you're more generous to other people than me, but remember who your friends are.
I do remember. I haven't forgotten.
Get out of my seat, man.
I mean, no, that's all right. Where we at, people that are.
Other members of the public
opposed?
opposing the application?
Anybody that opposed the application?
Anybody in support?
Anybody in support?
Closing statements from either? Staff wish to make a closing statement?
Nothing further unless there are questions of me, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Danielson, anything further?
I don't have any questions, but I did have a chance to listen to the planning and zoning meeting, which was enlightening. I know it says that there were 6 people there. I never could count more than 5. And, you know, if I'm wrong, I think the record should reflect that it was 4-1 and 5-0 as far as it was unanimous in some cases, but I never could find that 6th person unless it was the attorney. That's just for the record, so that as we move forward, it will reflect that, or I get my eyes checked. With that, is there a closing comment for the staff is concerned, or the developer? Then I guess it's time for us, as far as deliberation and which direction we want to go in, and we'll take the first one, which I think is the rezoning. I don't know if there's any additional comments anyone has.
Can I just? I mean, I think I think it was answered, but if staff could come up and just explain the details between R100 and R100A, just as far as I know I believe like the actual lot size does not change, but what the details are of that.
Certainly, Commissioner. Give me just a second to turn to it so I get them right.
So basically, just so you can answer it, you know, the way what I'm looking for. What could or can't you do by having this change done? The size of home, the setback, etc.
First of all, the uses are exactly the same, single-family residential, so that doesn't change. The lot area for the R100 would require a lot area, minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet. The minimum lot area for the R100A is 7,000 square feet. In fact, the lots being platted are approximately 7,500 square feet, 60 by 125. The minimum lot width in the R100 is 75 feet. The R100A, allows a minimum lot width of 60 feet. The maximum building heights are the same, 35 feet. The front yard setbacks are 25 feet in both cases. The side yard for the R100A would be 10 feet on one side and a total of 25, where for the R100A, it's 10 feet on each side. And the rear lot line is 30 feet in the R100, 25 feet in the R100A. The minimum floor area for the residents in R100 is 1,200 square feet. In the R100A, it is also 1,200 square feet. In fact, I think the development agreement specifies that the minimum floor area will be 1,600 square feet for these homes.
So that's the smallest home you could build?
Yes, sir.
correct? All right, okay, thank you.
I hope that.
Any additional comments, questions? If not, then Chair will entertain a motion. This is on 21A, and that's amending the zoning to map.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. The next item is ordinance 2014-15, vacate right-of-way, first reading. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second?
Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. I'm not sure, with item 21C, should we go into discussion and then defer it, or?
Mr. Mayor, I think the best way to do it procedurally is to read the resolution, you have some discussion, and then get a motion to defer after that discussion is concluded.
Okay.
All right. It's Resolution 2014-32, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida. Oh, excuse me, I have the wrong one.
Could I interrupt and ask a quick question? Mayor?
Yeah, yes, sir.
It's listed as a discussion item on the agenda. I'm wondering why we would need to make a motion to defer if it's already listed as a discussion item.
I believe that's due to the advertising. Am I correct?
If it's already advertised as a discussion item, why would we have to make a motion to defer?
Actually, the site plan wasn't advertised as a discussion item, so it could be done either way. The development agreement's really the one that needs to be deferred.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, the development agreement was the one that was advertised. The site plan was not advertised as a discussion item, so either way would be fine. I think that staff wanted the commission to have the opportunity to, if they wanted to work through some of the items, in the thing. So you're absolutely right. It could be done either way and procedurally comfortable.
Okay,
For
because
C-
it's listed as a discussion item on
Right.
the agenda.
Yeah, for C, D is not, right? I see C is discussion.
Yeah, there's nothing,
For D, it
yeah,
just,
C is listed as a discussion item, and there's nothing next to D.
Sure. I would agree with you, Vice Mayor. It could be done either way and from a procedural perspective. I would just ask that, again, the development agreement be formally read and deferred formally by motion.
okay. So did you get the right resolution for?
Yeah, I've got it. It's Resolution 2014-32, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application 14-62 for site plan approval for a 21-acre, more or less, 25-lot, single-family subdivision located in Bay Shore Heights, beginning at Loquat Drive and extending north to Bay Shore Drive, providing for findings, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date.
Anyone, Commissioner Tarpon?
Thank you. I'll first start by saying I just want to extend my gratitude to Mr. Danielson and your team, certainly staff, the commission. This project, in my mind, has come a long way from when it first started with D.R. Horton. A long way. I definitely think it's important the way, and proud of the way it was handled with the public input, the public meetings, the way it was advertised, the multiple public meetings that were had, and I think that's reflective of this audience tonight. I think you've pretty much have approval from the neighborhood. Otherwise, you'd see a lot more people here. And I see that multiple concessions have been made, and I'm thankful for that. Mr. Andropoulos, you're clear now that there's no swale on West Bay Shore? If you wait till I'm finished. Okay. So I see that was a concession that was made from the last time that you were before P&Z. There was a swale that some members of the public were unhappy with, and now that's no longer there. So I'll note that for the record. But I feel like the project has come so far, and this is where I'll talk about Eunice Drive. Why sell ourselves short when we've got to this point? It's a great project. It looks nice. I think it'll be successful. But I would still like to see Eunice Drive go through. I had no problem supporting the zoning amendment or the vacative right-of-way in the sense that it hinges on the site plan and development agreement. I believe it's been told to me, Mr. Danielson, that you're okay with putting Eunice Drive through as long as it's funded by the city within the development agreement.
What I'd like to have, if we need to have someone to come up, if you would come up and then talk, and so that we can capture it for the record, you know.
Yes, we understand the possible savings to the city if while our guys are out there blasting in roads, they can put Eunice Drive through also. Our biggest concern is just you guys making a decision and moving quick enough to get it engineered while our guys are still on the site. That'd be our biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. LaCourse has provided a memorandum with that in terms of costs. It's my belief on two different points that, number one, Eunice Drive is to me is a public safety issue in terms of evacuation. We see on DeSoto Way on their site plan where it's identified as clearly a low point in the road. So it's my belief that people in between, I guess it would be east of DeSoto and in between DeSoto and Sunset Drive, they really have no way to evacuate once the water levels get to a certain point. It's in my opinion that Eunice Drive would be that way as evacuation. As well as the increased benefits in terms of ad valorem tax revenues, redevelopment to those existing lots that are platted, and it's my belief also that the cost that the city would bear to put Eunice Drive through, we would surely regain in impact fee credits, et cetera. So those are my comments. Again, I think the project's come a long way. I just feel like we would really be doing ourselves a disservice at this point to not put Eunice Drive through. If we're going to put it through at some point, why not be, and we're going to pay for it either way, why not do it now? Certainly a cost saving can be seen there. So those are my comments. In terms of making a motion to that effect, Mayor, I guess I won't since it's just a discussion item. But that's what Eunice Drive going through is what I would look for approval for the site plan at its next reading and also the development agreement. And I don't know if the commission would feel comfortable either supporting or not supporting, if we can do so by consensus.
Well, what I do, and I see that Mr. Andropoulos, and I know that since I looked at the planning and zoning, Mr. Nichols would like to speak to this item too. I just say this, is that from my perspective, as I stated the first time we started talking about Eunice Drive, I could not see that there was a need. I know what planning and zoning said, and it was the irony of it, and Mr. Nichols probably was curious as to why I knew his name, is that he came up, he talked about Eunice Drive, and it was told that it was not a part of the site plan, and basically like it wasn't going to be discussed. He sat down, and then after he did, then it was talked about later. I didn't use that description, but it was talked about later as an add-on to it. And what basically came out of planning and zoning is that this board looked at the feasibility of doing it. Not that there was a recommendation that we do it, but that we would look at it as a feasibility of doing it. And I'm still at a point of looking and thinking that out of all of the meetings that was there, out of all the people that's concerned about Bay Shore and this development, that it never came up during any of those discussions as to that's what the people wanted out there. But now we're being told that it's a priority when I know that there are other items that we've looked at, and Mears Boulevard is one of them, that we're still kind of stuck there in terms of what would really be an evacuation route for all of Tarpon if you get from the Florida Avenue and the rest of that out in Sunset Hill. You know, where would you go then? You know, as being a greater priority to me than doing something there. I haven't seen, I just say from my perspective, I haven't seen that as being a need. I haven't seen it as being something that there is the thought from the people out there that that's something that really needs to happen. I know when, and I don't speak for Mr. Nichols because when we have public comments, he can speak for himself, is that the area there is low, how much field is going to need to build up that area, and then what's going to be the repercussions of building that up so that it get to Bay Shore. I just think that right now we have in front of us an estimate, a conceptual estimate of 200, I think, 19,000, something like that, as an estimate on what it might cost. Nobody knows until we get into it in terms of how much money it will be, and then we're saying that there's going to be this big savings once we do it because it's going to make everybody want to develop the area, and once they do that, then, you know, it's, to me, I don't know whether that's taking the cart before the horse. So I'm not one that I've seen anything for as I'm concerned that would persuade me any different than when we first talked about it. And when we first talked about it, I said that I didn't think that we should just look at a street arbitrarily, put it above everything else that we have, simply because we say that there is a possibility of saving a few dollars in doing it now. So for me, I haven't changed on that item as it relates. And so you know how I feel about it. You know.
If I could just tell you
Yes, sir.
from my aspect, I think in this whole thing, and this road came up, I think the only thing to keep the project going, keep everything going, and still give the commission their rights to look at this and do this, I would suggest we're going to do it a simple language when we bring back the development agreement, that if the city agrees to proceed, and we can bring you the cost, we can bring you the engineering, we can bring that, but simply to do it and to have them set and going forward, it would be a thing if you agree to bring it forward. We've already talked to the city attorney about some kind of language. If this commission agrees to put that and put this through, then the developer would do it at the reimbursement of cost that we'd be doing. That means we could still have several more meetings. Obviously, he talks about a timetable, so we'd bring that back to you of when we'd have to do to get it engineered and do that stuff. But you really wouldn't make a commitment that would affect all this. It would just be language in there that if the city decides to proceed with units, because you could proceed with this and we could build our own. Obviously, in most cases, there's 15,000, 20,000 mobilization charge, scope of unit. Obviously, they're probably going to be, this is a price on here that if we did it. So we think the cost will be less, theoretically, if they were to do it. But the simple thing to do next week in the development agreement is the city attorney bring back language that if this commission decides for the road to go through and go and request them to do it, that they would do it at our cost. And then, you know, at any point, we can bring back fast, same meeting, next meeting, we can bring back everything on the road, the feasibility, and then citizens can come and talk about that portion of the road. But they can move on, development agreement can move on. You just got that language in there that they'll agree to put it through if this board decides that's a priority and put through. And that's the way we would do it and keep everything moving along with the process in the development agreement. You could either add that to the development agreement when it goes in next week or not, and then still discuss it and decide if the street is something you want to spend the money for. You see the cost. Right now, we have $310,000 in our transportation impact fees to do that. There are also some possibility of that when we bring back the street to look at it another time, we can talk about assessments to the property owners on there. We can talk about some other funds that may come in. We can discuss all those things, but I would think that this board's decision next week would just to put in the language again, in case the city wants to do it, that they would agree to do it at the cost. If in 2-3 meetings you decide not to do it, then obviously we wouldn't ask them to do it, and the language is still in there. So that's my envisionment of how they would go.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with Mark that that language would be helpful for that. It doesn't tie us down tonight or the very next meeting, but gives us all the options and our due diligence. I don't think it's giving Eunice priority. I think it's us being smart in looking at this development as a whole. And I mean, and I'm not a developer, but when I'm looking at this, and again, I am very thankful that we're looking at this and not the one that we saw last year. This is a much better plan, though, for this whole neighborhood. And you know, it would make sense to me for the city, if we can afford it, to do Eunice Drive, to complete this whole area here, and we would surely regain the money back when that's developed. And you know, that would give incentive to the property owner there to develop those properties down the road, and he's getting it at a much cheaper cost than if he was having to do it on his own. So it's going to make the property more attractive to do that and just complete the whole area. So while I don't think it's like, well, when I look at all the streets in Tarpon, I'm just picking out Eunice. To me, it's just more, let's be smart about this, and when looking at this whole development, let's just finish it off properly, and that way it just sets that roadmap for that last piece to be developed. So, you know, so I'm in agreement that if it is feasible for the city to do it, I would be in favor of us doing, the Eunice Drive. Thank you.
I understand what you're saying. From what I've heard, there are some drainage issues there, and I'm thinking the $219,000 could potentially be a lot more, and I just don't see it as a project that's pressing when we look at Mears, as the mayor said, and some other projects that I feel are more important to the city of Tarpon Springs. So I'd just like to look at more about the cost of it and the drainage issues that we were told about in that area.
And as I look to go to public comments, I say this is that, you know, Mears not only is an evacuation route, but we've got properties right at the corner of Mears and Pinellas that developers have looked at, talked about developing. There's other properties that's there that's not being developed, and we talk about doing something that's going to add to our tax roll and provide safety. You can't make me believe that Mears would not be ahead of that. And my problem is this, is that, you know, for some reason, you know, I've heard 2 people tonight say safety. All the people that's out there, you know, we are completing the development, but I don't hear the developer saying that it helps his project, maybe help some other people in their projects going forward. But I don't hear that from people that live out there, except one who speaks for everybody out there. You know, that's all I hear. So I'm just saying that for where I sit, I don't see that. Now, maybe from now till the next meeting, I'll get a lot of telephone calls and people will tell me that they're really for it, and you know, my number's in the book. People know how to get in contact with me. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All due respect, I don't think that you can compare an apple to an apple by comparing Mears Boulevard and Eunice Drive. It's just not comparing apples to apples. Mears Boulevard was set to go through years ago. It hasn't gone through, and that's out of the city's control, is my opinion and belief. And as Commissioner Banther said, it's not a priority to put Eunice Drive through. It's more of an opportunity. And what I would encourage the board to do in the off weeks coming to the next meeting is drive Eunice Drive to the south of Sunset Drive, and see how the hodgepodge approach worked there, and see how the road was put through little by little as somebody decided to develop a lot, and see if that's what you call a standard road in the city of Tarpon Springs.
What I'll do is open it up to public comments, and Mr. Andropoulos has been waiting there, so.
Harry Andropoulos, 907 Bayshore Drive. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I've been over with the developer the changes that he's indicating that he's going to do for the extension that essentially goes between Mrs. Protas's and my property. I'm satisfied if they put in the curbs and gutters and the sidewalks that they're indicating they're going to do, and that they're going to pipe the water back to their retention pond. I don't object to the development of that piece of the street. I don't object to the development of the whole development. To start with, I think it's a good project and a good thing to do in the city. Just one other thing, Mayor, in terms of Eunice Drive, I'm open to anything that gets the traffic going that way, because when you put West Bayshore Drive, you're going to dump that traffic right in front of my driveway. And I haven't said anything about it, and I'm not that upset about it because I feel the traffic is going to go the other way, but it is going to cause me a little bit of heartache that way. So I just want to give you a little encouragement for Eunice Drive in terms of that. Okay, otherwise, thank you, and I'll just be looking for their adjustments in their site plan to show curbs and gutters and the piping to the retention pond, and then I'm fine with what their engineer has indicated to me that they're going to handle on Bayshore. Thank you.
Again, Anita Protas, Bayshore Drive. Eunice Drive was talked about, Mayor, from the very first public meetings. It was discussed, it was mentioned, and said that we'd like to open it. You're a little bit behind the dust of the horse and the cart on that one, sir. We've brought it up many times. Commissioner Cyber, when you took your oath, you are responsible for the health, welfare, and safety of the public. Mears Boulevard has been stated to go in for many, many years. There was a road to be connected to Mears. It wasn't supported to help the neighborhood. Remember that, Mayor? So here we go again with another road for the safety and welfare of the neighborhood and the residents in that one whole area, and we may not do it. We gave you the recommendation on the wordage of the city attorney. Mr. Haley was there. If you had wanted to say we wanted it through, we would have put it that way. But we were told for feasibility so you could see and understand why it should go through. This is very important to the neighborhood. If you do not do it at this time, it will not be done. It's because the developers and the road people are out there. That's when you do these things. It's going to open up for people to sell their properties. Maybe the developer may eventually want it to develop it. It's going to put taxes into the city. If we wait, it's going to end up like Mears. Mears ain't going to go through right away. It's been talked about. Even the hospital has come back on that one and what they wanted to develop there. You can't compare the two. Mears is not the neighborhood that Bayshore Heights is. And you are responsible for us and our safety. That's what you need to look into. That's what the people voted for you and put in your hands. And when you say it's not a priority, it is very much a priority, and God help us if anything happens out there and it doesn't go, then it's on all your hands. I'm very, very disappointed with that, and it should be put into the motion tonight to put it in and work on Eunice. Because I don't trust any of y'all to come back.
Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. Paul Lewis, 820 Bayshore Drive. I also own the property across the street from 820 Bayshore Drive, which is at the intersection of DeSoto Way and Bayshore. So probably more so than any other property owner, my property will be impacted, pro or con, positively or negatively, by the drainage from this development. I spoke at Planning and Zoning regarding my overall general concern that this is being done to positively improve the drainage. I'm not a civil engineer. I don't have that background, so certainly am trusting some of the civil engineers who are here tonight. I still have some concerns, however, regarding the drainage of this project. Initially, there was a berm surrounding my vacant property on the initial site development plan, and that berm has been removed. Nobody's really explained to me or talked to me why that berm was removed or what the potential impact on my undeveloped property may be. Additionally, we've talked about possibly putting a larger drainage pipe on my property, and I'm not clear where the current drainage pipe runs and what that would mean by putting a larger drainage pipe on my property, and as well as giving up any rights to my property for that. So I'm certainly requesting to get some additional information to see what the impact of both these changes would mean from the original site plan to the current site plan, and requesting some clarification from some of the engineers as well as from the project developer, because again, my property has the biggest potential for a negative impact if this is done incorrectly, and worsening of my flooding and devaluation of my property. So these are my concerns, and I wanted to publicly record them at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could, Mr. Healy, and to the developer, I don't know if anybody could get with Mr. Lewis in terms of his concerns as he's just addressed there before our next meeting, so he'll know exactly where he's at.
Yeah, actually, if Mr. Lewis has a couple minutes after the meeting, our engineers here and the city's engineers here, we could put you three together to coordinate a time to really sit down, because it's probably going to take a little while to walk through this, but that way the three of you guys could all get together, and I think it would address all your concerns,
That'd be great. That's what I like to recommend with our engineer here too, because again, you got to remember, we made sure we got our engineer here involved in this so that we'd watch out for the interests of the residents. Not to say that your engineer, you have a very fine engineer also, so I'm not saying he's not looking out, but we wanted checks and balances. So that was what I was going to suggest. I agree with you. We got both the engineers here and him to meet after the meeting, and
correct. We'd like them all to sit down together.
and plus, we've got 2 weeks, if there's anything after that, we've got 2 weeks before the next one, and we'll be glad to sit down with you and go over any of your concerns before the next meeting.
Is that if a public comments on development agreement, Nichols, I'm not sure if you want to say anything because we're going to close this and keep moving. It's up to you. Okay. So this is just for discussion. This will come back to us to look at, and with that, we'll move to 21D, and that's resolution for the development agreement. I don't know if there's something that someone want to talk about now, but we already heard about. I don't know whether you wanted to put that in there if we have the motion for us changing the development agreement and Eunice Drive or whatever. But is there anything else? Would you just like to just defer this, come and bring it back?
We will bring you back the language that I talked about. We will have that language here and ready when we come back in 2 weeks.
Well,
for you to either add or not to add to the development.
Okay, because right now I'm at a point where I don't know whether I could support spending money to look at something that eventually I would say no to, and that means that there's a waste of money. So I'll wait until I see the language, and I'll wait for my phone calls.
I'll just move to defer Resolution 2014-30.
Second.
Any public comments on this item?
Before we move on,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Vice Mayor, can I have you make that motion to defer to the date certain of November 18?
So moved.
Appreciate that.
Second.
If there's no public comments, roll call.
Mr. Attorney, do we need to also defer 32 separate?
You don't, because as the Vice Mayor pointed out, it's listed as a discussion item, so there's
discussion,
nothing to
okay.
defer.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yep.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. The next item that we have, I think, is an addendum, and that's Resolution 2014-33, requesting agreement with DOT for Boys and Girls Club Christmas tree lot.
Resolution 2014-33, a resolution of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, requesting an agreement with the DOT for use of a parcel of property at the northwest corner of US Highway 19 and Tarpon Avenue in Tarpon Springs by the Boys and Girls Club for sale of Christmas trees, providing for distribution and providing for an effective date. Resolution 2014-33 by title only.
This is the item we do every year for the Boys Club, in conjunction with the Elks, to do the Christmas trees out there. The Department of Transportation needs that to proceed, and they need this from the City Commission to do, so we've done this for many years, and that's what the item is.
He's just showing your versatility. Any questions on this item? The chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yep.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. The next item is miscellaneous. Item 22, settlement agreement, Tarpon Springs Shepherd Center versus the City of Tarpon Springs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, we spoke about this litigation. This is case number 2013-10957, Tarpon Springs Shepherd Center versus City of Tarpon Springs. The city was sued in late 2013, claiming an adverse condemnation of the property located at East Lyme and Huey. The city has some infrastructure, as we discussed at length during the executive session that we held recently. At that point in time, I brought to you a settlement offer from the Shepherd Center, which was comprised of the city purchasing the property for a sum just under $250,000. At your direction, I've gone back to plaintiffs and negotiated the sale of the property for $235,000, which was something of a split of the difference between the numbers proposed by city and by the property owner. Total settlement inclusive of attorney's fees and costs is $261,051.49. The city would obviously assume fee simple ownership of the property, subject to a Duke Energy easement running north and south on the property. Again, that would resolve the entire litigation, and we would enter into a settlement or agree on a settlement agreement to be filed with the court and dismiss the case. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, it is my recommendation that this is a fair settlement based on the facts of the case. And if Mark has anything to add, please do that.
No, after being involved this long time, I think this is our best option. As much as many of us on this board, I think, and myself don't like it, I think this is the best option that we need to proceed with.
Any questions? Commissioner Tarpani.
Thank you. I know we discussed in our special session that the contract price would be under $250,000 for the need or no need of referendum and would require a supermajority vote.
Correct. You need an affirmative vote of four votes to purchase property under $250,000.
So in the vacant land contract in the special or in the additional terms, it references the attorney's fees plus the $1,051.49 for litigation costs.
Yeah, and again, that's a separate and distinct portion of the settlement, outside of the purchase of the property, though. It's listed in the agreement. It's listed in the contract as just to memorialize and be transparent in the terms, but it's actually not purchase price of property, of real property.
But it will be shown in the closing statement.
Correct, as funds to be transferred between us, yes.
So you're okay with that in the contract, but not as a party to the purchase price of the property?
Correct, and simply, again, because you're not paying the fees and costs as a function of transferring the property. And certainly, we can take it out and do it separately by agreement. Either way would work, but again, it was just in the interest of transparency to put it in the contract.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're legal counsel. If you're comfortable with it, to me, it makes me a little uncomfortable just because it's within the contract for the purchase of real property. But
yeah, understood. And having consulted with my partner Bob Metz, who's the dirt guy, the real estate guy in the office, he was of the opinion that these are distinct distinct sums of money for distinct things.
And your office is doing the closing?
Correct.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
I don't mean to interrupt. I should have asked. May I have a question?
Yeah.
I think in our executive session, the board asked you or directed you to see if you could negotiate the price at all. Did you attempt that?
Yeah, this contract reflects a negotiated price. We were at $247.5.
Plus the 250. or
Right, plus the 25 and 26. So again, we were looking at, thanks. Appreciate that.
It came in better. I guess that's a little less heartburn. I know that none of us like it for various reasons, but sometimes some things are thrust on you. So, if there are no public comments, then roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yep.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Item number 23 is appointment to Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and we have one is to appoint Matt King to a partial term of 6 months. This term will expire in April 6, 2015. Then we have to decide 2 people to appoint as delegates, and then to reappoint either Mr. Frayne or someone else. So there's a few things. I guess they would take number 1 first.
Can I just,
Yes.
because this has been obviously something that's been weighing on me as we've not been able to have Board of Adjustments meetings. Pretty much going down the line, obviously, we've missed Board of Adjustments meetings by not having a quorum. To start off with Mr. King, who only has 6 months, partial term of 6 months, because he'll reach his 10-year limit. We did reach out to him before to make sure that his schedule will allow him to get that time, because going back to the bottom line, if you look down the list, the number of people we have is the exact number we need to fit. We have no extra ones on there. So obviously that's one I'd encourage you to do. And then filling in the list, Mr. Frayne has made it very clear, I think to himself and others, that his work obligations, he can't attend the meetings and stuff. So I don't think he's an option to reappoint because he can't make them. He hasn't made the last ones that we have in a quorum, and he's indicated, at least one of the commissioners, and as we've talked to him, that his work obligations, and he just can't do it anymore. So where it goes down to, you got Mr. King reappointing, and then you've got the 4 people on the list to go in those 4 places. I want to thank my Rotary call, Mr. Boris and Mr. Elliott. That was a call at Rotary, because this seems to be a board that is not glamorous. It seems to be a board that nobody wants to be on, and we have been scouring for months to get people on this board, and some people stepping up. I also want to thank former Commissioner Alahousas. He has asked that one spot of being an alternate, which is very important with this board, with being put up. He has agreed and put in to be on it, but as soon as somebody requests a citizen to go on that's interested in that board to replace it, he'd like to come off, but he will fill that role, so we will have a complete board, and we can get some people heard that haven't been able to be heard in 3 months. So I want to thank him for stepping forward and say he would take that alternate spot. And then, of course, if a citizen comes in and requests it, he has no problems with you removing him and putting the citizen that is on the board. But basically, these names, just wherever you put them, there's no extras. That we thank these people to come forward, and that will just fill your openings that you have there. So just to go over the background of everything.
Just for a little clarification, Mr. Alahousas said he'd be the alternate.
Yes, and he will serve until we can get someone.
So do we need a motion to make him alternate, and all the rest of the people, just what terms that you like for them to?
Well, it's not all the
They're all
rest.
the same term.
Yeah,
They all,
October 31st.
they all,
expire
well,
October.
then
Two
you're just
resignations.
bringing everybody else on then.
You bring in,
Yeah, we can make this easy.
Because you said that Mr. Frayne.
oh, you're right, you're
can't-
correct, Marius.
So, yes, sir.
I think I could make this relatively easy if you'll allow
Okay.
me the opportunity.
Hey, it's yours.
Okay. I move to reappoint Matt King, to appoint Chris Herbowski to the expired term of Ed Cole, to appoint George Boris to the vacated term of Mr. Delgado, to appoint Herb Elliott to fill the expired term for Tommy Frayne, and to appoint Chris Alahousas as the alternate member.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Next, we have appointments for the Library Advisory Board. I was trying to figure out, it said something about move either alternate up.
Mine's not
I didn't see them. Did I miss them? Who the alternates are? 1 and 2?
The alternate is Peggy Prestis, is alternate 1, and Kemen Mitchell is alternate 2. They could either be moved up or,
So we can actually move those people into, the first slot and then the second slot.
What's the alternate two's name again? I'm sorry.
is Kemen Mitchell?
Mitchell, you said?
Kim and Mitchell.
It's on page
It's on the
1
fourth
here.
page.
On the roster.
Do anybody have any objections to the alternates moving up? Or is that something else you'd like to do?
You just have to move one of them up.
Can I make a motion, Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I would motion to move Peggy Prestis to fill the vacated alternate position. She's the current alternate.
I would, yeah. Second.
And did you want to
You're moving her
appoint
to,
another alternate?
Okay, so you're right. So then I guess it would be Eileen Scott, correct? That's our only option, right?
That's correct.
So so we're moving Peggy up to fill the unexpired term of Julie Eekmeyer, and then moving Eileen Scott, or rather appointing Eileen Scott to fulfill the alternate position by Peggy.
second.
Which position does Eileen Scott go into, alternate 1 or alternate 2?
I would believe Peggy's alternate 1, so Eileen Scott's going to alternate 1.
Okay, so the ones that alternate 2 gonna stay at alternate 2?
Yes, that's what I.
Okay. I just thought we would move that one up.
Well, I'm not
So that
opposed
they
to that if somebody. I mean.
If they would have a chance to move up.
Okay, well, you're right, Mayor. Let me amend that. You're right.
Amend the motion here.
Yeah, I'll just amend the motion, okay? Let me try and wordsmith this here. So, okay. So I would motion to put Peggy Prestis to fill the unexpired term of Julie Eekmeyer, and then I would put Eileen Scott in alternate 2's place, and then alternate 1. I wish, for some reason, my brain escapes me on this one, but that's
That'd be
correct.
Ms. Mitchell. would
Ms.
be
Mitchell.
the alternate one.
Ms. Mitchell's alternate 1, and then Ms. Scott will be alternate 2, and then Peggy is the regular member.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you, if that makes any sense.
Any public comments? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. The next one we have is to reappoint Jerome Sableski and Mark Sansota to another 3-year term on the code enforcement to expire November 2016, and to reappoint Wandel Besky, Bruce Kramer, and Mr. Y'all help me out there.
Demosthenes.
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 To another 3-year term that will expire November 1st, 2017. Or I say any combination that we might choose.
So it's basically you could either reappoint or
It's either take
use
the
some of
easy
the-
way or let's
I
work
move
some
to
things out.
reappoint those up for reappointment.
Second.
Any public comments? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. And I believe that concludes our agenda. Chief?
No comments, Mayor.
No
Mr.
comments,
Attorney?
sir. No comments.
City Manager?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk?
No comment.
Commissioner Banther?
No, sir.
Vice Mayor?
No comments, thank you.
Commissioner Tarpani?
Yes, sir. I would just say that today was the first day of a 25 artist invitational plein air event in the city of Tarpon Springs. They'll be painting throughout the week. And on Saturday, November 8th, from 7 to 9 p.m., all of their work will be displayed and for sale at Terrapini's department store. At the end of each day, today, tomorrow, etc., the work will come to the store for drying and will be displayed, but the ceremony and event is Saturday from 7 to 9. Hope to see you all there.
Commissioner Sieber?
There are lots of events going on this month, so I suggest that people look at the city's website to see all the events going on. One of the other events after the Planet Air event is the Seafood Festival on the Sponge Docks on the 15th and 16th.
The only thing I have is to say that, we're in the process of planning a Mayor's Fitness Challenge. Hopefully, it will be something that the city will get involved in for as looking at wellness, an opportunity to maybe get in a little better condition. There'll be a press release and more information following as to exactly how you can be involved in it. So.
I think we got the website up. Is the website?
Website's up. Going to the city's website, you can click into it, get a little bit more information about it. Feel like you'd like to get in a little better shape at a very economical.
Will you be leading classes, Mayor, out of the?
I will
out
promise
backyard?
this. I will be involved.
Okay, all right.
Now, leading, I don't know.
All right.
But with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 8:37, if my eyes are correct.
Sure, Scott's got it.
Too bad.
Did everybody sign the?
Hillsborough.